You signed off. You were the one.
I signed off on all of the documents.
You're the one that wrote the knot.
I did not say I was the one that wrote the knot.
Well, who did that?
I do not know.
You don't know?
I do not know.
That's a remarkable thing.
I know that the decision ultimately reflects the decision that I would support.
Well, then there's only 3 people that could have written the knot.
It's not true.
2 of them are sitting at this table, so who wrote it?
I cannot say who wrote the knot. However, I will tell you the ultimate decision reflects the decision of the minister and the government.
Was this knot put in by some interloper? Is there some override on a minister's decision?
I said, as I clearly said, the decision reflects the decision of the government, the minister.
So it's a reasonable possibility that you signed off on this and that someone put a knot in later.
I would tell you that the document reflects the decision.
Well, it may well, but you just said that you didn't put the knot in. I'm assuming your president of the CETA didn't put the knot in. There's only one other signatory that didn't put the knot in. So somehow or another, a knot got put in after possibly all 3 of you recommended the Kairos funding.
That's not true. As I said, the document reflects the decision of the government, and the government, I was entrusted with the responsibility of ensuring the government's policies are being followed.
Madam Minister, clearly somebody didn't get the memo on the priorities, because clearly Madam Biggs or the other person to the signatory sent the memo up to you from September through November, and they sent that memo to you. You sat on it for 2 months. It's fine. That's not an issue. The issue is that they didn't seem to understand what your priorities were. So they didn't get the memo as to what the priorities were. So I'm not quite sure if this reflects government priorities, why is it that the president of CETA doesn't know what the priorities of the government are?
It's not. The responsibility of the department is to give their best advice to the minister. The minister then has the discretion to make the ultimate decision. As I've indicated, we had discussion with department regarding this file. Many times, and I will tell you, I have utmost confidence in the deputy, the executive vice president, the officers at CETA. Many times you will, and I am very confident that every time we come to agreement on a final decision, that the decision, the document will reflect the decision made.
We're not arguing. We're not discussing, Madam Minister.
Well, I'm trying to follow your thing. You want to? It's like the CSI or an investigative forensic thing.
It's rather important.
I'd like to know what your issue is.
We're talking about $7 million for people who have been in a relationship with the government since 1977.
Right.
And what you just told this committee is that 3 people signed off on this memo recommending a continuation of that relationship, and you tell me afterwards you don't know who put the knot in. Well, does it go somewhere else after it goes?
That's all the time we have, because we have limited time. I'm going to hold everyone to their time today. So we're going to move on to Mr. Dorian. Sure.
I'd like to take this opportunity to set the record straight regarding the funding application for Kairos. I wish to clearly inform the House of the matter and clear up any misunderstandings that exist. The CETA officials did forward a document in which they sought approval of the recommendation for funding of the Kairos proposal. But ultimately, the decision to provide funding was mine, or to not provide funding was mine as Minister of International Cooperation. I apologize, Speaker. As you know, I have to hold my sheets up. Departments do make recommendations to ministers, and ministers, in carrying out their responsibilities, can agree with those recommendations, or, as is the case with this issue, they can disagree. Absolutely. In this case, the process in place requires the department to make recommendations, not to make the decision. So there was no decision taken by the department to provide funding, only a recommendation. It was my decision to disagree with the recommendation based on discussion with advisors. I was fully aware that my decision was not aligned with the recommendation of the department. In the matter before you, the opposition have asked you to rule on whether I intentionally or knowingly misled this House by saying it was a department decision. At no time have I stated that the decision for funding was that of the department. I have repeatedly and clearly stated in response to questions in the House and at committee that the funding decision was mine. The knot was inserted at my direction. Given the way the document was formatted, allowing only for concurrence, this was the only way to reflect my decision.
Member for Beaches, East York.
Mr. Speaker, on January 19, the Minister of Status of Women promised to go to Vancouver to meet with women's groups regarding the cuts and changes to the Status of Women Canada. That was almost 2 weeks ago. The Minister still hasn't set a date. These Canadian women are still waiting for their calls to be returned. Will the Minister tell this House why she promised to meet with these women's groups when she clearly has no intention of actually meeting with them? Is that because she cannot face them, because she cannot defend her cuts?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that honourable member, because again it's a matter of misleading and deception. I have contacted those members. We've offered them dates. We are still trying to find a mutual date so that I have talked to them. It is my intention to fulfill that commitment. We've talked to them on the phone. We've offered them 3 dates. They've not been able to. We are now offering them some other dates.
London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, there's some real contradictions here in the House. Organizations and activists have been protesting the egregious cuts to status of women for months. And one group, as was pointed out, was forced to occupy the Minister's BC offices. Now, the Minister promised a meeting in person in Vancouver. We're not convinced about this. If the Minister is so willing to meet, will she meet this group before March 31st when the funds run out, or do they have to occupy her offices again?
The Honourable the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, as I indicated, I will be meeting with them. We have offered them dates. Every date I've offered them has been prior to March.